In this episode, we're going to take a look at the RØDE NTG4 Plus shotgun mic. To start off, we recorded this entire episode with the RØDE NTG4 Plus shotgun microphone into a Tascam DR60D audio recorder. It is the Mark II version. It is not a terribly expensive recorder, but it's a pretty common recorder out there, so I thought I'd use that as our baseline. Now, first, in the box itself, we get of course, the microphone itself, a foam windscreen, boom clip or stand clip, leatherette pouch, mini USB cable for recharging, and an XLR spacer. The XLR spacer is useful if your XLR cable is not connecting firmly to the microphone. It wobbles around a little bit. You can actually put that spacer in there, and that tightens up the connection. The mic weighs 176 grams. The NTG2, for reference, for those that have it, is 161 grams without a battery, and it's about the same or a little bit more than the NTG4 Plus once you put a battery in it. This was really a nice job by RØDE, I think. Weight really matters when you're holding the mic out on the end of a boom pole for the duration of a take. So it's nice that this new microphone with the inbuilt battery is actually lighter than an NTG2 with a battery. The mic is 28 centimeters in length, which is pretty standard for a short to medium length shotgun microphone. The mic itself, of course, has an XLR connector. So really what that means is that this mic is meant to record into more professional-based recorders that have XLR inputs. Can you adapt it? Well, we'll look at that in a little bit later to see if you can actually use an XLR to 3.5 millimeter connector to run it directly into your camera, but really its intention is to go into a recorder that has XLR inputs and preamplifiers. The microphone has a series of 3 buttons which control a variety of features. The first one is a high-frequency emphasis button. This is really meant for cases when you're recording outdoors and you're using a blimp or a Zeppelin type cover. These are the really large covers that are useful for cutting the interference you get from wind when you're operating outdoors. And what this does is it actually brings back some of the high-frequency sound, the kind of the high-pitch, the treble sound that you tend to lose when you put your microphone in one of those types of cases. Here's an example of what the microphone sounds like when I do not have the high-frequency presence switch on, and I'm using a RØDE dead cat. So it's not exactly the same as a blimp or Zeppelin cover, but it is pretty close in terms of the amount of high frequency that it cuts out. And here's an example with the RØDE dead cat on, and in this case, the high-frequency presence switch turned on. So again, this is something you would normally use if you're using something like a Zeppelin, blimp, or a dead cat, or whatever the furry cover happens to be called that you're using. And this is what that sounds like. The second button controls the high-pass filter. High-pass filters are typically useful when you're trying to, again, eliminate some of the wind noise, or if you're just trying to cut off or roll off some of the low-frequency noise or sound that you're capturing. Here's an example of the high-pass filter turned on the microphone, so you can get a sense for what that sounds like. This, again, is something you typically use if you have a little bit of wind you're trying to deal with, or a lot of low-frequency rumble or things of that nature. The third button is a 10 decibel pad. 10 decibel pad is something you would normally use if you're recording a very loud sound source. This might be something for those concert goers that are going to be recording concerts where things get really, really loud. And all it does is it cuts back the amount of the amplitude of the sound by 10 dB. Now, this button also doubles as the power button for the microphone. Now, at first I thought, I don't know about these buttons. It's something that seems like you could bump very easily and they'd get in the way and you'd accidentally set things incorrectly. Well, I haven't had that problem at all. It's been really good. They're actually recessed a little bit, and they also require a fairly firm touch. So they have worked really, really well. I think it was a very good design choice on RØDE's part. Each of the buttons has an LED to indicate whether that feature is on or off, and there's also a power LED that gives you the status on the powering of the microphone, whether it's being powered by the battery or by phantom power from your recorder. If it's being powered by the phantom power on your recorder, the LED shines blue. If, on the other hand, you're recording with the power from the microphone, it actually turns a variety of colors depending on the battery status. Speaking of the battery, RØDE claims that this battery will power the mic for 150 hours. I have no reason to doubt that. I haven't actually left it on for 150 hours to test it to be 100% sure, but it is tracking that direction. I haven't put quite that many hours on it just yet. In terms of charging up the battery, it took about 2 hours when I first received the mic to get it from absolutely nothing to full charge using the USB cable that is included with it. And of course, you can plug that USB cable into either a computer or into, say, for example, your car if you've got a USB in your car, or you can use the majority of the 5-watt USB to power adapters that come with most smartphones. In my case, I used the one that came with my iPhone, and it worked beautifully. In terms of pickup pattern, the microphone has a supercardioid pickup pattern, which is somewhere between cardioid and hypercardioid. What does that mean in practical terms? That means it has a fairly narrow pickup pattern, but it's not the narrowest it could possibly be. So it should be pretty useful and pretty easy to boom operate if you have two different people and you're trying to mic with the same mic. Being able to turn between the two people shouldn't pose any major problems, even if you miss your aim by just a little bit. Walking further through the specs here, next thing on the list is it has a 200 ohm output impedance, which means that ideally you use a mic preamp with an input impedance of 2000 ohms or higher. Now don't worry if you don't understand what all this means. Really kind of the rule of thumb here is that you want the input impedance of your preamp to be at least 10 times the output impedance of your microphone. So in this case, I'm using again the Tascam DR60D Mark II has an input impedance of 2000 ohms, and this mic has an output impedance of 200 ohms, which is perfect, as that's exactly 10 times. The mic is spec'd at 135 dB max SPL, which is quite good. What that means is that you can record loud sounds without it actually distorting. So this would actually be great for those of you that, again, want to record really loud things like concerts. Now here's an example of what it sounds like when you mount the microphone on top of a camera. The camera is about 4 to 5 feet away from me. It is adapted with an XLR to 3.5mm adapter and recording directly into my Panasonic Lumix GH4. This is what that sounds like. This can be a fine option for run and gun type situations. Typically it's going to work better if you can get a little bit closer in, but there are a few problems with this, and I totally understand. There are totally cases where this is something you'll need to do, but it's not ideal for a couple of reasons. Let me explain those. Number one, first of all, the mic is pointed straight at me. What that means is that it kind of picks up in a cone pattern. So it's going to pick up anything behind me, any sound reflecting off of any walls behind me or anything that's behind me. So it's going to pick up more noise. Secondly, adapting from XLR to 3.5mm and going directly into the camera, while that is very convenient, you do lose some audio quality. Again, because this mic is normally designed to work with a high quality XLR input preamplifier that provides phantom power, or that the mic can power for itself. So it's a slightly different case. Let's see what it sounds like, and you can decide for yourself if this is acceptable for the types of things you're doing. In terms of noise, they have improved the noise spec on this relative to the RØDE NTG4. It's now at 16 dB. It's not unusual for a shotgun mic in this league to have a noise floor about that range. It's actually 2 dB quieter than the RØDE NTG4, so it's actually a nice improvement. The mic has a 1-year warranty out of the box, but if you go to RØDE's website and register your mic, that's extended to 10 years, which is a fantastic feature on RØDE's mics. I've always been appreciative of that fact. I've never had to actually warranty one of my mics, but if I ever do, it's great to know that they've got that option. If you register your mic at RØDE's website, not only does it extend your warranty to 10 years, but you also get a free copy of Pluralize Express, which is software that will sync your audio to your video if you've recorded them separately, which is a great little add-on. Now we're recording outdoors in a little bit of a breeze. It's probably 8 to 10 miles an hour, I would guess. Maybe a little bit less than that. So it's not a really strong breeze, but this is just to give you an example of how the mic works outdoors. We have just the foam wind cover that came with a mic on it. Now this is a little bit more substantial than the one that came with the RØDE NTG4 originally, but probably still not enough if you're going to be shooting outdoors on a regular basis. You could probably get away with it if there's no breeze at all, or very, very little breeze. But if there's any sort of breeze, you're probably going to need a little bit more than this. Now here we're shooting with the RØDE Dead Cat, which is an additional product from RØDE. It doesn't come with the mic, but this adds a little bit more wind protection than just the foam wind cover that does come with it. And again, still probably again about maybe 6 to 8 to 10 mile an hour breeze here, so that you can see how that sounds. So there's a quick look at the RØDE NTG4 Plus shotgun microphone. What are my thoughts? My thought is that this is a very versatile mic. If I were going to be looking at whether I should get a RØDE NTG2, NTG4, or NTG4 Plus, I think if you have the budget, the NTG4 Plus is definitely worth the money. I would actually probably skip the NTG4 and just go for the Plus, because that built-in battery is part of what makes this mic so versatile. For example, if there are going to be cases where you're going to need to use an XLR to 3.5mm adapter and record directly into your camera, this mic can do that. The NTG2 never worked for me in the past when I did that, so it just didn't have a strong enough output signal, and that didn't pan out very well, and the audio quality was pretty lousy. In fact, I just get better audio with the camera mic in that case. But in this case, it actually does a pretty decent job. Now, the sample I showed you, we're still 4 feet away from the camera, but actually, in light of that circumstance, in light of it was the fact that we were so far away, it still sounded pretty decent. So that inbuilt battery allows you to do that. On the NTG4, you won't have that, so that wouldn't be an option there. In terms of its sound, it does not have that radio announcer sound, that low-end boost sound. And I understand lots of people like that sound. There are times when I like that sound, but it's frankly not very natural. And you can always add that in post via an EQ filter. So I would rather start out sounding more natural and take it from there and be able to kind of tweak it from there. So that's a consideration. Again, that's totally subjective. That's totally up to you. That may or may not work for you. But I would also encourage you to take a look at the previous NTG2 video if you're still trying to decide between these mics, just so you can hear what that one sounds like. See the sample where we tried to adapt it from XLR to 3.5 millimeter and go directly into, in that case, I was using a Canon 60D, so it was a little while ago when I had that camera. So that's something I would encourage you to go check out if, again, you're interested in doing that comparison. The buttons work beautifully. I was concerned, to be honest, going into this, that they were going to be difficult to work with and I would accidentally hit them. I'm not finding that to be the case at all. The foam that comes with it is thicker than the foam that originally came with the NTG2, so they've definitely made some improvements there. How does it work outside? Well, you're still going to need a Zeppelin or a blimp if you're going to be working outside, most likely if there's going to be a breeze. So that's something to consider. That's not a downside on this mic. That's pretty much all shotgun mics are that way. Some maybe just a tiny bit better, but they're all going to have that issue. So those are some things to consider when you're looking at the Rode NTG4 Plus versus the NTG2. Hope you found that helpful. Go ahead and leave any comments or questions you have down below. We'd love to hear from you on that. We also have the Rode Link is getting ready to ship. That's the wireless lavalier microphone from Rode that was announced earlier this year. Finally got an email today saying, hey, we're getting ready to ship it, just so you're aware. It's been a long wait. We're actually going to be getting that probably in the first part of May here. So I'll need a couple of weeks to work with that, and then we'll have a review for you on that. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that, and we'll be sure to get you more great videos on how to improve your lighting and sound for video. Talk to you soon.